I searched for my missing girlfriend for 2 whole months. But there wasn't a single clue about her. Just when I thought Willow had probably passed away in some accident, I actually saw her at a bar. There she was, nestled in Makoto's arms, her face flushed with a shy smile. She said, "Of course, I was pretending to be missing. Women have to be fake sometimes if they want men to love them more." She had Anna, my best friend, cover for her. And that fool didn't suspect a thing. I curled the corner of my lips and turned to leave. When I got home, her best friend hugged me, looking innocent as she asked, "Any news on Willow today?" But the next second, I pulled her onto the bed. I said, "My girlfriend might really be dead this time. You'll have to comfort me properly." Chapter 1. It was the 2nd month since Willow had gone missing. I unexpectedly saw her again. She was with her friends, still looking as arrogant as ever. Her best friend said, "Willow, since you went missing, we hardly get to see you." Willow frowned and complained. I couldn't help it. George is so annoying. He's always controlling me, never lets me go out at night. I have to teach him a lesson. Her friend asked, "Why did you come up with this disappearing act?" The man next to Willow laughed and said, "I taught her. Good thing I'm here, or else she'd be controlled by a guy for the rest of her life." Willow smiled playfully and said, Yeah, all thanks to Makoto." I recognized the man. Makoto, Willow's childhood friend. Her best friend asked, "But if you go this far, won't George suspect something?" Willow replied, "I had Anna help me cover up the lie. It's fine." Everyone nodded in realization. No wonder, with Anna covering for you, he definitely won't suspect anything. Yeah, who would have thought that the great Miss Sue would lie like that? Makoto laughed and teased. "It's because George is so dumb." I waited for Willow to speak. But what I got instead was her putting George down. She said to Makoto, "Of course, he's not as smart or capable as Makoto." The others started teasing. It seemed like they were all used to it by now. Her best friend said, "Makoto, why don't you just deal with Willow directly? Why does she need to find some boyfriend?" Makoto laughed and said, "I don't eat where I sleep." Willow snorted and said, "I'm not interested in you, either." They both exchanged looks of disdain. But under the table, their legs were brushing against each other absent-mindedly. As the conversation wound down, someone asked, "Being missing for so long isn't good. Willow, when are you planning to go back?" She answered, "Soon," Willow said confidently. "When George has gone crazy looking for me, I'll go back." Chapter 2. I was supposed to go to the police station to file a report today, but I changed my mind. Instead, I went out and had some small barbecue by myself. Then spent the afternoon at a board game cafe. By the time I got home, it was already evening. The lights were off inside. I thought Anna had already left. Just as I was taking off my coat, I was suddenly hugged from behind by a pair of delicate arms around my waist. A damp feeling seeped through my back. My body stiffened, and I asked, "Have you been crying?" Anna choked on her sobs and said, "What did you do today? Why didn't you answer my calls?" I rubbed my forehead and said, "Sorry, I didn't check my phone." She asked, "Any news about Willow?" I sighed and replied, "Ugh, no." My tone was filled with regret. Anna squeezed me even tighter, and the dampness grew stronger. She cried and said, "It's all my fault. If I hadn't dragged her to go hiking, she wouldn't have gone missing." She seemed truly regretful. If only she hadn't come over to kiss me. Anna is Willow's best friend. After Willow went missing, one of them was in the light, the other in the dark. Anna played the part of the one who was sorry, but it seemed Willow didn't know. Her best friend had a rather special way of showing remorse. Chapter 3. Anna was a born heiress, raised with a silver spoon in her mouth. Her family background better than Willow's. In front of others, she was aloof and self-important, as if unreachable. I used to think the same way. Usually, Anna and I didn't talk much. After college, I found a job. Unfortunately, the company I worked for was one of the Sue family's businesses. Anna became the small CEO. The distance between us grew even greater. I only started to get close to Anna about a month ago. I suddenly received the news that Willow had gone missing and thought she might have had an accident. So I was devastated for a while. Anna, as the one who caused it, came to apologize at first, crying uncontrollably. Later, it seemed like she genuinely felt guilty. So she insisted on bringing me 3 meals a day. The most outrageous part was that, as time went on, she even started coming over to clean my house and do laundry every day. It made me really uncomfortable. So I said, "Anna, you really can't blame yourself for this." Even if you hadn't asked her, she was already planning to go. To be fair, this was an accident. No one would want to see this happen. I can't say that because you invited her for dinner, and then she got food poisoning, I should blame you for inviting her. Right, you couldn't have predicted this, and her parents didn't say anything, so I definitely won't blame you. Just go do your thing. I really don't need you to do this. Put that shirt down. I quickly rushed over and snatched the underwear from her hand. I said, I'll wash these myself. Anna looked at me seriously and said, I wash them better. You sure you don't want me to help? No. I was so embarrassed at the time that I didn't even notice that she secretly hid her hand behind her back, rubbing it with regret. How did I eventually discover Anna's other side? It was probably one night when I woke up to use the bathroom. I found that Anna was still in my house and hadn't left. I was about to ask her about it. As I approached the door and peered through the crack, I saw it. She was lying there, silent yet more expressive than words, her red lips tightly pressed together, one hand clutching my shirt tightly, sniffing it at her nose, while the other hand was hidden behind the cupboard. The dim light cast soft shadows on her pale skin, and tiny beads of sweat started to form on her neck. I was speechless at the sight in front of me. I accidentally brushed against the doorknob. Anna instantly looked back. The moment she saw me, she bit her lip lightly, and a trembling sound escaped her throat. Chapter 4. I discovered Anna's secret. From then on, we spiraled out of control. I knew I should turn and leave, but I couldn't control myself when I saw that scene. Maybe it was because, when I was devastated over Willow's disappearance, Anna was the only one who silently stayed by my side, and maybe also because I had already begun to suspect that Willow's disappearance was a setup. How could a daughter go missing? And her own parents didn't report it and even tried to stop me from doing so. How could her best friend disappear? And the small group of friends just continued partying every night as if nothing had happened. All these doubts, until today, were finally confirmed. They all teamed up to put on a show for me. Even Anna was an important part of that performance. Back to the present. Anna still wouldn't let go of me. I said, tiredly, Did you make dinner? I'm hungry. She wiped away her tears and sweetly said, I made it. Everything you love. I nodded and said, Heat it up. She replied, Okay. Anna immediately went to heat the food. She didn't feel the slightest discomfort in me speaking to her in a commanding tone. After dinner, I tossed my shirt to her and said, Go wash it. Anna paused and asked, Can I really do it? I replied, Yeah, I'm tired today, too lazy to do it myself. She looked like she had been rewarded, holding the clothes as she walked into the bathroom. I knew it would take her at least 20 minutes before she came out. Once I had Anna out of the way, I unlocked her phone, which she had left on the table. Sure enough, Willow had created a new WeChat account and was still in contact with them. In the first few days, Willow would ask about me. She asked, How's George? Anna replied, He's been really down today, barely able to eat. Willow replied, It's fine. He's always like that. When he gets busy or something happens, he doesn't eat. That's why his stomach problems are so bad. Don't pay him any attention. Anna asked, When will this drama end? Willow replied with a question mark. Anna wrote, If you don't like him, break up. Why play with him? Willow replied, I don't dislike him. I just think he's too controlling. He won't let me go to the bar at night. Makoto is right. Girls need to act a little pretentious for men to cherish them. If I make George suffer a little, he'll learn to follow my lead. Anna didn't reply after that. A notification popped up, a group chat, which caught my eye. The group was named Lord Makoto and his 3 maidservants. Chapter 05. Makoto said, George has been absent-minded all day. Yesterday, he messed up the materials at work, got scolded badly by his boss, and even had colleagues see it. The cat maid Willow replied, That's awful. Makoto responded, Willow, see, my tactic works, right, this way. You'll have him under control for sure. So, how about tonight? Will you join me for a drink? He added, Just the 2 of us. Are you in? This was from the group chat of Willow and Makoto's little circle. There were 4 girls in total. 3 of them went by the nickname Maid. The other one was Anna. Only she used her real name. I had heard Willow mention before. Anna joined the group later on. I didn't know the exact reason. My guess was that since the Ito, Lu, and Su families had business dealings, she probably joined because of that. Anna rarely spoke in the group. It was mostly Willow and Makoto chatting back and forth. The cat maid Willow said, That's so annoying. Making such jokes. Anyone who hears it would think something's going on between us. I've had so many fights with George over this. Makoto replied, Talking about it just makes me laugh. What are we to each other? Best buds since childhood. What's George to you? A petty guy who wants to control your life. He's just a failure. The most controlling men are the ones who can't do anything. Willow sent a cat emoji asking for a hug and replied, MHM. Makoto is the best. From now on, I'll rely on you as my strategist. I'll follow your lead. Makoto replied, No problem. Leave it to me. I felt disgusted. I scrolled back up. They chatted almost every day. If I didn't know better, I'd think they were flirting. It turned out that Willow always made me wait for our dates because it was Makoto's idea. Even when I was sick, lying alone in the hospital, She was with Makoto. She even gave the Valentine's Day gift I got her, headphones, right to Makoto. A new message popped up. Willow privately messaged Anna. I just remembered something. To avoid raising suspicion, I just sent a question mark. Willow asked. 2 months ago, on Makoto's birthday night, remember I was drunk and spent the night at Makoto's place. You must not tell anyone. Just remember, that night I was with you. Okay. I slowly typed out 4 words. What happened that night? Willow replied. Didn't we agree not to talk about this anymore? Makoto and I are pretending nothing happened that night. How else can we stay friends? Chapter 06. Anna came out of the bathroom. Her clothes were washed. Her expression was calm, though there was still a faint blush on her cheeks. I smiled at her and asked, "You okay?" Anna shyly looked at me but didn't respond, even though I had already uncovered her strange secret, and kissed her lips. We had still never taken the next step. I sized her up. Anna had a slender waist, a graceful curve, and nearly perfect proportions. Her features were delicate, loose-style eyebrows and almond eyes, giving her a pure and ethereal appearance. Looking at her, she was far superior to Willow in terms of looks. I nodded and said, "You might need to wash your skirt later," she asked. "What?" Anna looked up at me, still not understanding what I meant. I already had her in my arms, carrying her. I sighed and said, "Anna, Willow might really be gone." I paused, then said, "Will you stay with me tonight?" Chapter 07. After that day, whenever I sent her a question mark, Anna would come. We were in perfect sync, more in sync than I was with Willow. Anna had danced before, practiced yoga, so in terms of experience, she was even better than Willow, more enjoyable. Plus, in terms of body and appearance, she was on a completely different level. I kind of regretted not making a move sooner. Why waste time with Willow, that walking corpse? Anna hadn't noticed anything unusual. I had deleted the chat history. Whenever I had the chance, I'd grab her phone to check the group chat. I had stopped searching for Willow's clues. Willow was starting to panic. She tagged everyone in the group chat. "What's going on? Why isn't George reaching out to me anymore?" Bunny Girl Mary sent a voice message. "Willow, don't worry. He's probably just tired and has no energy." Willow replied, "That's impossible. No matter how tired or busy George is, he always contacts me. Should I go back?" Makoto replied, "Hold on. Don't go back yet. Keep him hanging a little longer. Going back now would ruin everything." Willow said, "I can't. I have to check on him tomorrow." Makoto replied, "Willow, are you out of your mind? The plan I worked so hard to make, and you're not following it. Are you playing me? It's all guys. Do you think I don't know? He probably heard something, trying to force you to show up. Watch how I deal with him." Willow was silent for a moment. In the end, she gave in. She replied, "All right, I'll listen to you." But even so, Willow still had doubts. That evening, she secretly called Anna. When the call came in, Anna was sitting on top of me. It was an unknown number, and she almost hung up. But I said, "Answer it. This will be interesting." I pressed the answer button and held the phone to Anna's ear. Willow said, "Anna, I'm just worried. What's been going on with George lately?" Anna thought I couldn't hear the voice on the phone. Flushed, she replied, He's pretty good." The voice on the other end sounded surprised. "Anna, what's wrong with your voice? What are you doing? Is there a man with you?" Anna answered, stumbling. "How did you know?" Willow chuckled lightly. "I could tell right away. You're happy now." "Huh? Am I interrupting something between you two?" Willow didn't finish her sentence. Suddenly, I spoke up, saying to Anna, "Focus." There was a brief silence on the phone. When Willow spoke again, her voice had changed, trembling. "Anna, who are you with right now?" Chapter 08. Anna woke from her daze. She quickly lowered the volume on her phone, her voice returning to its usual cold tone as she said, "Someone you don't know?" Willow asked, but it sounded like George to me. I continued working without expression, and Anna bit her lip. "You heard wrong. Nothing's going on. Hang up and don't disturb me." Anna ended the call. She clung to me tightly, her voice sweet as she said, "Let's continue. I'll be fully focused now." I smiled and said, "We're not continuing. Aren't you afraid Willow will show up any minute?" Anna froze. I added, "She's probably hiding in the house on the outskirts of town." "Right. A cab ride here would only take about 30 minutes. She asked, "Did you hear that?" I replied, "To be honest, I've even met her before." Anna's face turned pale with panic. After a long silence, she finally managed to ask, "So you knew she wasn't really missing, didn't you?" I replied, "Yes." She asked, "Aren't you angry?" I said, "I was angry, but then I understood. Besides, getting angry at someone like her is just asking for trouble." When I confronted Willow that day, I didn't confront her face to face. I didn't lash out or demand to know why she'd lied to me. She had already hit rock bottom. What good would it do to expect any pearls to come from her dirty mouth? I looked at Anna and asked, "What about you? Don't you have anything to say?" Anna was the only one in their little group who had opposed the fake disappearance plan. I was really curious what made her ultimately agree to help. She lowered her gaze and said, "I owe her a favor." Anna seemed to let go of a heavy burden and told me everything. Willow helped me out a lot, and now she's using that to emotionally blackmail me into helping her. But no matter what, I shouldn't have lied to you. I'm sorry, George. I waved my hand and said, "Don't apologize. I'm just glad you're part of this act." She asked, "What do you mean?" I cupped Anna's chin and grinned, saying, "How about betraying them and becoming my accomplice?" Chapter 09. As I expected, Willow couldn't let it go and came over herself. At 1 a.m., she snuck into my house. This was my rental, and Willow's fingerprints could unlock the door. I was lying in bed, heavy with sleep. The bed was perfectly clean. There weren't any women's things in the bedroom. To play the part of a loving boyfriend, I had even left a tissue on the nightstand that had wiped away tears and a picture of us together. Willow seemed reassured, but she didn't know I was pretending to be asleep. After she was convinced, Willow left. She went to meet Anna. The two met at a convenience store. Willow said, "I'm sorry, Anna. I misunderstood you earlier." Anna smiled faintly and replied, "It's okay." She asked, "Where's your boyfriend?" Anna replied, "He was tired and fell asleep right away." Willow blinked and said, "His voice really sounds like George. Next time, you have to bring him out so I can meet him." Anna didn't answer. Willow seemed a little tired, and she said, "Anna, do you think I should go back now?" Anna asked, "Why are you thinking that?" Willow replied, "I haven't been sleeping well lately." Willow took a sip of her drink, her eyes and nose red. Sniffling as she said, "When I was with George, I always thought he was too controlling. Now that I'm free, nothing feels right. I haven't been able to sleep for several nights. I heard George hasn't been asking about me this week. I'm so scared I've lost him." Anna comforted her. "Don't worry, he hasn't given up on you. He's even thinking about filing a case." Willow quickly replied, "We can't file a case. That would give everything away." Anna answered, "I know. I stopped him. He's been a little sick this week, so he hasn't had time to focus on it." Willow asked, "Is he okay?" Anna replied, "It's just a cold. Nothing serious." Willow's eyes reddened. "I regret it. I've made George suffer so much." Anna said softly, "Don't say that. Think about it. He used to control your freedom, wouldn't let you go to bars, wouldn't let you have male friends. Now he has to understand who the real boss is." Willow pursed her lips. Anna interrupted, "Listen to Makoto. Just keep fooling him for a little longer." After Willow left, Anna took the phone from the side of the bag on the table. She nervously asked, "So, how did it go?" I looked at the video camera and smiled. "Great. Everything went exactly as I said. Come back now. Your reward is waiting." Chapter 10. The task I gave Anna was simple. Keep Willow calm and continue with their disappearance plan, because I had prepared a big gift for Willow. 3 days later, on a Saturday, I invited a bunch of friends over to my house. They were all old classmates of mine and Willow's. I had carefully decorated the house. In the center was a picture of Willow, accompanied by 6 large black characters. Willow's farewell party. My friends were all taken aback. They asked, "George, what's going on?" I was dressed in a black suit, looking haggard and dejected. I spoke slowly. "Willow has been missing for over a month now." They asked, "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I replied, "I didn't want to disturb your lives, and her parents didn't want anyone to know." One of them asked, "So, where is she now?" I answered, "Still not found." Everyone gasped in shock, and murmurs began. "My God, over a month and still no news. That can't be good." I heard the golden 72-hour window for rescue is critical. Once it's past 72 hours, the chance of survival is very low. As I listened to their discussions, I immediately put on an expression of utter grief, tears streaming down my face. One of my friends quickly said, "Don't say any more. George is already so heartbroken." Yeah, they were really close. George must be devastated. They comforted me for a while. One of our old classmates asked, "Has the police found any leads?" I sadly shook my head. No report was made. He asked, "Why didn't you report it?" I answered, "Her parents didn't agree. They wanted to use their own resources to search." He said, "No wonder. The Liu family is wealthy. They probably don't want this to get out and tarnish their reputation." Exactly. Willow's parents had respectable jobs and a polished image. If this were to get exposed, it would be disastrous. I wiped the tears from my eyes and raised my head, glancing at the phone that was live streaming the whole thing. Chapter 11. I had already informed my friends about the situation. Since some classmates were out of town and couldn't attend, I decided to live stream it. That way, they could still join in remotely. No one objected. The online audience was also quite enthusiastic. It wasn't often that someone streamed a farewell party. The live stream quickly attracted a large number of viewers. Many didn't know Willow but still sent their condolences or lit a candle. Of course, this also sparked some discussions. One netizen raised a question. How can a daughter go missing and her parents refuse to file a report? Someone replied, yeah, shouldn't they have contacted the police right away? I found out. The missing girl is from the Liu family. Maybe they have their own rescue team. Someone responded, didn't she go missing on Yunling Mountain? Impossible. I live nearby, and I haven't seen any rescue teams searching. I ignored these discussions. Don't rush. The other main character of this play was about to make an entrance. Sure enough. Half an hour later, Makoto kicked open my front door. Chapter 12. He rushed in, tearing down the white cloth and photos. He shouted, George, what the hell are you doing? Willow isn't dead. What's your problem? I had been playing the part of a broken man, but when I heard that, I looked up in shock and asked, What did you say? He replied, Willow isn't dead, you fool. Makoto still didn't realize everything was being live streamed. Every word and action of his was being recorded. The reason he arrived so quickly was because I had asked Anna to inform him. I said, Makoto, I know you're Willow's good friend, her best male friend, but there's no need to comfort me like this. It's been over a month. I've already prepared myself. With that, I started crying again. More and more people joined the live stream. The comments on the screen became more interesting. Some of the comments said, is this guy crazy? Who comes in and starts yelling at the grieving person? I know this guy. He's the heir of Ito Corporation. I live in the same city. Can someone tell me which neighborhood this is? I want to go and speak up for George. Makoto was completely oblivious to the comments. He gritted his teeth and said, I told you Willow isn't dead. Stop with these cursed acts. I asked, where's the proof? He replied, she was with me this morning, alive and well. At this, the room fell silent. Everyone looked at him with strange expressions. I forced a smile and said, Makoto, this isn't the kind of joke you should make. He frowned and said, don't believe me. Look at this. Makoto took out his phone and showed a selfie. It was a picture of him and Willow having breakfast together this morning. Willow was in her pajamas, and they were nearly pressed together in the frame. Makoto, with his arms crossed, looked down at me and said, George, I'll tell you the truth. She's pretending to be missing because of you, because you're a simp. Willow couldn't shake you off, so she had to use this method to avoid you. My face turned pale, and I nearly collapsed. I had to be supported by a classmate beside me. I said, are you saying she didn't want to break up with me and intentionally faked her own disappearance to trick me? Makoto sneered, don't blame her. Blame yourself. Your parents are just ordinary workers, so why would you think you're good enough for Willow? A guy like you, a Phoenix man. It was only a matter of time before she dumped you. I quickly calculated. It was time for the crucial moment. I steadied myself and asked, Makoto, what exactly is your relationship with Willow? He replied, we're friends, childhood friends. I frowned and asked, really? As her boyfriend, why am I completely unaware of this situation? But you know everything. Are you sure you two are just friends? Chapter 13. Makoto's words had already triggered the displeasure of the netizens. The comments flooded in. What's wrong with being from a working-class family? Shit. My parents are also working-class, and my grandparents were farmers. Ugh. These rich second-generation kids look down on others, thinking they're so great. Once I asked my question, the comments section became even more lively. Watching gossip is human nature. Makoto, looking displeased, said, do you even know what childhood friend means? We grew up together, and except for her parents, I've been the closest person to her. Understand? A friend beside us couldn't stand it and said, you guys really have no boundaries. Aren't you the third wheel, pretending to be just a friend while openly flirting? George, why are you still heartbroken over this kind of woman? Bro, I'll introduce someone better. Alright, that's enough. Makoto's little show could wrap up now. I pretended to be exhausted and sent everyone away. Then I turned off the live stream. Next, it was time for the female lead to make her entrance. The reason Makoto came first was because Willow was out of town today. Thanks to Anna, I had a precise handle on everyone's whereabouts. Willow had seen the live stream. She called me countless times, sending apology messages non-stop. At 9 p.m., Willow finally returned to City C. She couldn't rest, coming straight to find me, but she didn't come alone. She brought Anna along. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears, choking with emotion. She said, George, I really didn't mean to. I was just unhappy. That's why I agreed to his plan. I smiled and asked, did you have fun this past month? She shook her head. It was very painful. Seeing the impatience on my face, Willow knelt down, clutching my legs, and sobbed. They say girls have to be fake to avoid being controlled by their boyfriends. At first, I just wanted to punish you, make you follow my lead, but later, I couldn't sleep every night, and all I could think about was you. I smiled and replied. All about me. Huh. That doesn't stop you from wearing pajamas and getting so close to another man for breakfast. Willow paused for a moment, stunned. George, I only see Makoto as a friend. If you don't like it, I won't hang out with him anymore, I answered. But I think you two are a perfect match. Willow quickly shook her head. Not at all. I don't like him at all. He's spoiled by his family, selfish, always playing around and never serious. He's not someone you can rely on for life. What woman would want to be with him? George, the one I've always liked is you. I waved my hand. No, no, no. Willow, the more you say that, the more I think you two are a perfect match. Every little thing goes wrong, and you want to cause a scene. Haven't you made everyone revolve around you enough? Going to clubs, partying, smoking, drinking, living it up all night. How much more fun can you have? You want to rely on someone for life. You're a mess, and you want to find the right key for your broken lock. You disgust me. Just get away from me. I was firm and unyielding, but Willow panicked. She quickly turned to Anna for help. She said, Anna, help me convince George. Anna asked. Help you? Willow nodded. Yes, you have to help me cover up the lie. You're responsible too. Quickly, tell him. Anna said nothing, but walked up to me. Suddenly, she stood on her toes and kissed me. She said, George, you look so handsome when you're angry. Chapter 14. Willow completely broke down. She couldn't believe her eyes, even doubting whether she was seeing things. It wasn't until I took the initiative to embrace Anna's waist that she truly snapped. Willow's face turned red with fury, and she raised her hand to slap Anna. Of course, I couldn't let that happen. I pushed Willow aside and shielded Anna behind me. Willow, seeing Anna hiding behind me, her eyes red with rage, shouted, I helped you. How could you steal my boyfriend? Anna snorted. First of all, George can choose whoever he wants. If he doesn't like me, I can't take him from you. Secondly, you said that as long as I helped cover up the lie, we'd be square. I've done it. But Anna's way of doing things was quite special. Willow gritted her teeth and said, that doesn't mean you should take advantage of me. Don't you think you're just a shameless mistress? Anna shot back. A mistress? Fine, I'm the mistress. Anna smiled, her almond eyes narrowing into a beautiful arc. She said, Willow, from the moment you decided to deceive him, I've been preparing to take my position as the mistress. Chapter 15. I eventually forced Willow to leave. I also deleted her fingerprint unlock. She stood downstairs all night, and it just so happened that it rained the entire night. Willow was drenched, looking pitiful and desolate, but all I felt was disgust. The thought of her sleeping with Makoto only made it worse. That evening, I pulled Anna over to the window. The curtains and the lights cast our shadows. As things heated up, Anna bit my shoulder sharply. Through a slit in the curtain, she looked down below. Anna said, she seems like she's going insane. I laughed. Let her go crazy. Anna trembled slightly. George, I'm so happy. I asked. Why? She replied, I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Willow had indeed lost it. She kept calling us, then came upstairs, banging on the door. In the end, I called the police, and she finally calmed down. The night passed, and the live stream continued to stir up more attention. Thank goodness for Makoto. Our live stream wasn't even that popular at first, but after he insulted the working class, it gained widespread attention. Makoto's background and work details were quickly exposed. Ito Corp had just released a PR statement. But then someone leaked a video showing Makoto and Willow cheating. The video was crystal clear. Willow had been drinking heavily, and Makoto was holding her. He teased, if I tell you to spend the night at my place, won't you be afraid? Willow shot him a glance and replied, we've known each other for years. Who's afraid of whom? Makoto responded, you sure have guts. Willow snorted, if you've got the guts, let's see who begs first. The two of them bickered as they went into the room. The cameraman hadn't left yet. It wasn't until the sounds inside became ambiguous that he finally left. Off camera, someone joked, hey, they sure are intense. Apart from the two involved, all other voices had been blurred out. So it wasn't clear who had filmed the video or who was speaking, but I knew. It must have been someone from their little group. Willow only hung out with them, and only they had the chance to film up close. That day was Makoto's birthday, and Anna had something to do, so she wasn't there. If we rule her out, it could only be one of the two other girls. The seemingly unbreakable little group was actually full of hidden resentment and contradictions. After the cheating scandal went public, the trashy man and woman were thrust into the limelight. Willow's family ran a fashion brand. Consumers rushed to return products, causing the company to suffer huge losses. At this point, Willow did something. She placed all the blame on Makoto. She cleared her own name completely. Chapter 16. The idea of faking a disappearance was suggested by Makoto. The start of the affair was actually when Makoto took advantage of her and got her drunk. Willow wrote a long post accusing Makoto, saying that he always invited her to drink late at night, poured drinks until she was so intoxicated she couldn't resist, and then took advantage of her. Later, he used that to blackmail Willow into maintaining an improper relationship with him. Willow claimed she had no choice but to get on the ship of thieves. When the post was published, it caused an uproar. Makoto was slammed online. Even his family's restaurant was intentionally harassed and disrupted. Makoto panicked. He tried to explain. "We've known each other since childhood. To me, she's like a guy. There's no way I intentionally got her drunk." Unexpectedly, this explanation made netizens even more upset. Comments flooded in. "So disgusting. Why didn't you say she was like a guy when you slept together? The worst thing is this lack of boundaries in friendship with the opposite sex." Makoto lost his job and had nowhere to turn. So he came to find Anna. That day, I happened to be there as well. When I saw his haggard, anxious face in the doorbell camera, Anna didn't open the door for him. Instead, she asked me, "Should I see him? You decide." I smiled. "Of course. Let's see what he has to say." She nodded. "Okay." I retreated to the bedroom, pretending not to be there. The soundproofing wasn't great, and I could hear every word of their conversation. Makoto was almost crying as he said, "Anna, you're the only one who can help me now." Anna rolled her eyes just slightly and asked, "How can I help?" Makoto said, "You're not serious about dating George, right? You're the daughter of Sue's family. How could you be interested in someone like him, just a regular office worker, part of the bottom tier of society?" Anna coldly replied, "What do you mean by, just regular? Makoto, do you think you're something special? What is regular? George and I are both regular people." "Makoto, haven't you been insulted enough? Why are you still looking down on others at this point?" Makoto was momentarily speechless. He then continued pleading. "Anyway, just say that all of this was a scheme by George to pursue you. After it's done, I'll introduce you to a rich, handsome guy." Anna sneered. "Dream on." Makoto grew desperate and said, "Aren't we good friends?" Anna replied, "Without George, who would be friends with you?" "What?" She frowned and said, "Can't you understand? Let me make it clearer. Back then, it was because of George that I joined your fake little group." At this, not only was Makoto shocked, but I was too. Anna slowly continued. "I met George in my first year of college. He left a strong impression on me. Unfortunately, I didn't get his name or contact information at the time. When I saw him again, he was already with Willow." Makoto sucked in a breath and asked, "So you joined us too?" Anna answered, "Yes, to find the right opportunity to steal him." Makoto was stunned. "You're crazy. They've been together for 2 years. Anna responded, "I've waited 2 years. Anna smiled proudly. "Luckily, hard work pays off. I finally got my chance." Makoto stammered, "So you agreed to help Willow cover up the lie because?" Anna nodded. "On the surface, it was to return a favor to Willow, but from the beginning, I had my own plans. In this grand spectacle, everyone had their own motives. Only Anna kept her true intentions hidden until the very end." Makoto turned pale. His teeth clenched as he said, "Anna, you're too scheming." Anna replied, "Same to you." Chapter 17. After Makoto left, I crossed my arms and said to Anna, "You sure?" Even I was kept in the dark. She pouted and said, "If I didn't keep things from you, how would I ever rise to the top?" I asked, "What do you mean?" Anna gave a helpless reply. "On the surface, I'm Willow's good best friend. If I had confessed to you early on, you wouldn't have considered me. So, I thought about it, and decided I'd be the bad guy. I'd seduce you, make you fall for me, and I'd just be the third party who ruined someone else's relationship." Anna appeared in my life, playing the role of the repentant one. She took care of me in the smallest details. She casually showed off her good figure, while everyone else remained unaware. She put on a solo show of female competition. I asked, "What if your plan fails in the end?" Anna smiled gently and said, "Then it doesn't matter. At least, when you were at your lowest point, I was there with you. That's enough." Makoto, isolated and helpless, could only flee Sea City in disgrace. His family business was hit hard, and their capital shrank. He could no longer live the life of a carefree, wealthy young man. But still, I wasn't satisfied. The mistake was one they both made. Why should Willow get to disappear so beautifully? I didn't have any dirt on Willow, but I was sure someone else did. Those who had once been closest to her must have known something. So, I found Makoto's Weibo. I messaged him every day, trying to get close. I wrote, "Bro, it was obviously that slut's fault. Why is it that you're the only one taking the blame? Brother, I say, don't let her off easy. It's better to make it a double loss than to just win alone. You know, usually, in a person's darkest hour, The one who comforts them and gets close to them can easily stir their emotions. As expected, my constant guidance finally paid off. He exposed the chat history where Willow had been sending him provocative photos. He revealed that Willow had lied about being coerced into cheating. Normally, such a revelation might not have garnered much attention. But Lou's family had just wrapped up a business war. The rival company saw an opportunity and instantly bought traffic and trending searches for Makoto's story. So, Willow's victim persona shattered into pieces. Chapter 18. The situation only escalated. More and more people came out to criticize Willow. She had basically no chance of recovering. The Lou family was already patriarchal, and after all, Willow still had a younger brother. Seeing the situation turning against them, the Lou family immediately abandoned her and went to protect the family name, changing their approach to handling things. Without the protection of her family, Willow fell from grace and into the mud. She spent every day in bars, drinking, living in a haze, accepting every man who came her way. She had always loved to party and drink. But now, she was finally undone by her alcoholism. One night, with her senses dulled, Willow was hit by a speeding car. She injured her leg. The doctor said she would limp for the rest of her life. Later, the police reviewed the surveillance footage. Willow had violated traffic rules, running a red light and jaywalking, so the driver wasn't at fault. A few days later, an uninvited guest arrived. It was Willow's parents. I wasn't unfamiliar with them, having met them before. However, her parents were like smiling tigers. On the surface, they were kind, but deep down, they looked down on my family's background and had been helping Willow put on a show. Now, to my surprise, they came to beg me. They said, "George, I've always been fairly good to you, haven't I?" I smiled and replied, "If you have something to say, just say it." They said, "Willow has indeed made a mistake, and we've scolded her, but you see, our company is innocent." I asked, "So, what do you mean by that?" They replied, "Could you possibly write a letter of understanding? Just say that this matter is over, and you won't hold it against us anymore." I wanted to laugh. How thick-skinned must they be to make such a request? But, well, I had already made my plan. I trembled, eyes red, and emotionally said, "Mr. and Mrs. Lou, I know you've been good to me, and I don't want to drag you into this, but this has hurt me so much. I've been in so much pain. I really don't know what to do. I treated her so well. How could she betray me like this? Some people online are even calling me a simp, saying I deserve it. I've been getting cyberbullied every day and I'm afraid to even go online now. I've been having nightmares, and my friends suggest I see a therapist, but therapy is so expensive. I just can't afford it." They exchanged a look and said, Yes, it's all Willow's fault. George, how about we offer some compensation? How much do you want?" I shook my head in panic and said, "No, I don't want money." I wouldn't specify an amount. I wasn't stupid. Who knows if they would use their connections to accuse me of extortion later. They asked, 200,000. I replied, "This isn't something money can solve." They asked again, 400,000. I said, "Ma'am, my feelings for Willow cannot be measured in money." They said, 500,000. I sighed and said, "Sigh, I think I'll go see a therapist." I kept refusing the money. I only kept emphasizing how much emotional damage I had suffered. One day later, I suddenly noticed 2 million more in my bank account. The note attached read, "Voluntary compensation for emotional distress." Chapter 19. I looked at the text message about the money transfer and smiled happily. Anna said, "You want money? I can give it to you too." I waved my hand and replied, "It's not the same. This is what I deserve." Whether it was Willow or Anna, I never sought their family wealth or money, but what's rightfully mine, I would never shy away from claiming. Anna asked, "What should we do next? Are you really going to forgive them?" I replied, "Yes, of course, I'll forgive them. After all, they paid me. Even this bit of morality should be maintained." I immediately filmed a forgiveness video. However, in the video, I played the victim again. I said the words of forgiveness, but my expression was one of complete despair, and I even shed a tear of hopelessness. I made sure that once this video was released, Willow wouldn't get a shred of mercy from netizens. In the past, whenever Willow secretly went clubbing or drinking and I caught her, she would cry and play the victim. That trick worked every time, but she never imagined that the victim card would be played against her. On Christmas Day, Anna and I walked hand in hand down the street. Suddenly, she stopped, pointing to a bubble tea shop ahead. She said, "The first time I met you was right there. That was the bubble tea shop where I worked part-time during my freshman year." She continued, "I wasn't feeling well that day, so I sat down in the shop for a while, and you brought me a cup of hot water." Anna smiled softly at the memory, the corners of her eyes lifting gently. "You said, 'It's fine if you don't want to buy tea. The boss is gone, so feel free to rest here.'" I laughed and said, "I remember now." Back then, I thought you couldn't afford the tea. Who would have thought you were actually the daughter of the Su family? Anna tilted her head and said. And then you grabbed some snacks and went to feed a ginger cat outside. I still remember that moment, but later. When she returned to that bubble tea shop to formally introduce herself. I had already quit my part-time job. She looked for me in circles until she finally found me, but by then, I had become Willow's boyfriend. That day, Anna said nothing. She simply lowered her bitter eyes, standing alone. For the past 2 years, she had watched me embrace Willow, watched Willow act coquettishly with me, but those weren't the most painful parts. The most painful thing was that Willow didn't care about me. The person she held most dear, who seemed unattainable, was treated by Willow as nothing more than a simp. Anna struggled in her morals and feelings. Finally, Willow handed the opportunity to her. This time, she was done with morality. Anna thought, even if I'm cursed, I'll try. I couldn't help but tease. Anna, it seems once you set your sights on someone, there's no way they can escape, she replied. She looked at me seriously and said, so, will you take me with you to study abroad? I froze for a moment and asked, how did you know? Chapter 20. I needed the money from the Liu family because I wanted to study abroad. I wanted to learn more and see a larger world. After receiving the money, I sent an email to a professor I admired overseas. The professor was very interested in my undergraduate social practices. He was willing to take me in, and I would just need to wait until next year's school term. I sighed and said, sorry, I didn't mean to keep this from you. I just didn't know how to tell you. She spoke softly. George, I want to understand you. I want to share the little bits of my life with you, and I want you to be able to share your future plans with me without worry, because I want to have an important place in your future. Anna took my hand and rubbed her cheek against it, then said, I'm familiar with F country. I used to go there a lot. Buying a plane ticket is no big deal. If you don't mind, I'd like to be your study companion. I thought for a moment and asked, is that really appropriate? She arrogantly nodded and said, of course it is. If you're ever struggling with foreign food, you can eat what I cook. You've been eating my meals every day lately. Don't you think I can take care of you? I responded, no, I'm just worried that having a study companion might waste your time. Anna shook her head and said, my parents are actually thinking of sending me to F country to start a new business. I nodded and said, well, then it's decided. She asked, George, would you like to meet my parents? I replied, isn't it a bit too early? I'm still in a situation where I'm neither successful nor a failure. I want to make a name for myself first. Thinking about how Willow's parents looked down on me, I hesitated, but Anna put my worries to rest, saying, I've already mentioned you to my parents. They really like you. They even know you love braised fish, and my mom taught me how to make it in case I couldn't get it right. We chatted about our family's daily lives, hand in hand, walking through the first snowfall of the year. Chapter 21. 9 months later. Anna and I boarded a plane to F country. My parents and Anna's parents came to see us off. Mr. Su kept reminding me, once you're there, take good care of each other. Anna is depending on you. Also, if you ever run low on money, don't hesitate to tell me. I'll send it over to you. The Su family truly was wealthy. Mrs. Su was also busy running around. She said, have you packed everything? George, my daughter can be a bit willful at times. If she does anything wrong, just let me know, and I'll fly to F country and deal with her. Don't feel any pressure. Just focus on your studies, I replied. Thank you, sir and ma'am, Anna responded. Mum, Dad, we're leaving now. The weather was clear today, perfect for flying. I was heading toward a better future. The future was ahead. My love was by my side. Everything was just right. May we never be bound by labels, whether weak or in pain. As long as we have courage in our hearts, you and I will always shine.